Welcome to another session. I hope you are well. I continue on the theme of relationships the men should avoid. And in today's topic, and in today's session, I focus on women who have a different value system than yourself. Let me start today's session with, I think, an example, an analogy that most people could or may relate to. If you've ever applied for a job, or if you've been in a position where you have advertised a job position, in other words, whether you're outside the business or within the business, there's something that is important as part of the hiring process or as part of the search process. For those who are outside, you are looking for a company that you can join that has a similar value system to yourself. The company will have a value system and one that they advertise and they communicate in their writings to their customers, to stakeholders, and to the wider society to distinguish themselves from other competitors. As a person looking to join a company, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you vet the company properly, to make sure that what you believe in is not in disagreement or opposed to what the company believes in. For example, if one of your core values is honesty and integrity, and you're joining a business where they want you to play fast and loose with the law, without saying it directly, accounting fraud, shenanigans, you would walk away because your value system diverges from the business's value system. Similarly, if the business was looking to hire someone, the hiring manager, assuming perhaps you've been in that position, either at director level or managerial level, you would be looking for someone who understands the company's core values, but most importantly, someone whose values fit within the team that you're hoping the person can join. I'm using that analogy to address today's topic. As a man, recognizing the responsibility that you bear on your shoulders, the fact that you have a purpose and a vision, and you have a discipline that you've set forward to take you from where you are to where you want to get to. In other words, to your goal, and recognizing that you're sacrificing your life in order to see if you have what it takes to reach the goal. In choosing a life partner and in choosing a relationship, specifically the gold standard being marriage, you want to make sure that you're taking that journey or you're inviting someone on board your ship with the same value system as you. In other words, you are interviewing for the right candidate, the right partner, the right helpmeet. And as such, it is important to keep in mind that the person's value system is critical in deciding whether you even date them, but we put dating to the side because dating can be short term. But for a long-term relationship, you want to make sure that there isn't a divergence in value system. Now let me take a step back. Some time ago, I did a series of sessions for women. I titled the series, How to Assess a Man's Value. And in the series, one of the things I talked about is the importance of a man's character value. I called it CV. I'm going to extract some of those conversations and invert them so that the man understands how to choose the right woman. Let me begin with philosophy. Philosophy is like you might call it a boat on the sea. It teaches effectively is how you set your sails. It helps you do two things. It helps you go from point A to point B. You set the sail of your life based on your philosophy, and you move in the direction by which you address or correct the sails. That's the first. Your philosophy is also how you interpret what happens to you in the world. It helps you interpret the events that occur in your life, but it also enables you to see. So philosophy is like a lens through which you interpret, you travel, you see, and therefore dictates the future. Now, what is key is that your philosophy will determine your belief system. Your belief system is fundamentally core. As a matter of fact, if you go across all ages, across all times, across all religions, what is consistent is the following: that as a person believes, so they become. That belief is powerful, but belief comes from philosophy. Your belief system will create, depending on the kind of person you are and depending on where you've come from, your belief system will create your values. In other words, what you value. More importantly, what you place in a hierarchy based on the values. So there are some things that are more important, and other things that are more important, and other things that are more important, and some things that are non-negotiable. I encourage men most of the time to have non-negotiables. Part of the reasons we do not succeed, generally speaking, in life, is that we do our best. Rather than say, here is my non-negotiable, I am going to do whatever it takes to either keep that non-negotiable or never to break that non-negotiable. You have a hierarchy of values, and that is important. Your hierarchy of values will determine, depending on what you think to be valuable, will determine your morale, your morality, your morals. Morality has to do with right or wrong. Value has to do with what is important. Belief has to do with what you hold dear to your heart and true. Philosophy, how you interpret. Now, your morals will determine your ethics, code of conduct, a code of behavior, which will determine your character as a man or as a woman. Your character, based on the kind of person you are, will translate through a lifestyle into a pathway for life. So your lifestyle comes from your character. Now, what this simply means is that if you are a man and you were trying to choose a significant other, a helpmeet, a wife, or you're vetting someone to be a significant other or a wife, you should be judging a woman in the same manner that you would judge a man who was coming to join you in a business, and you would ensure that a person's value system is consistent with yours. In business, normally we're looking for integrity, enthusiasm and insight, and someone who is really smart, and someone who actually has energy. The problem with all of those qualities are as follows. If you meet someone or find someone who has energy and enthusiasm, but lacks integrity, then you have a wrong person in your life, because remember, the person's morals might be different from yours, and what you call wrong, the person might call indifferent or even good. So if the person combines that energy and the enthusiasm with the wrong value system, they can do a lot of damage to you and your business. Why does this matter? Because I've gone through a few minutes of explaining a chronology of how, in the middle of all of what I've explained, the value system is fundamental. It matters for a number of reasons. Firstly, we make a mistake, generally speaking, in the West, and generally speaking, when we talk about intersexual dynamics, we make a huge mistake in saying, and sometimes we do not do this by intention, we just do sometimes out of ignorance, or sometimes just we don't understand, or we're not thinking carefully. We make a mistake of thinking that women are the ones who are responsible for the culture within a family. It's not necessarily inaccurate, it's just incomplete. The man is the one who determines the purpose and the vision in the family. If he is wise, and if he is discerning, he communicates that purpose and that vision carefully to the woman, and she chooses whether his vision and his purpose and the path he wants to travel in is in keeping with her value system. So effectively, she's the one choosing. If it is, she takes his value system, his philosophy, his belief system, and his purpose and vision, and she incubates all of what she's received. She then becomes a scribe. Whilst he is out sourcing and finding resources, if there are children in the family, she communicates what the family stands for. Firstly, The man is the teacher of the family culture. He's the one who starts the teaching process. He teaches the wife teaches the children, the father reinforces what the mother has taught based on the father's position. Now, what that simply means is that in principle, in choosing a wife, in choosing a woman for a relationship, the key, and one of the key determinant factors is, are both of you walking in the same direction? How can two walk together except they agree? If your philosophy is different from a woman's, or the woman's philosophy, it's not the end of the world. For a number of reasons. Firstly, the question is always, is there an ideological twist or position to her philosophy? Number two, is there ideological divergence between philosophies? Now, the reason I say this is, imagine this. You're the first teacher of culture. You transmit that culture to the wife. You go in good faith, but she rejects what you've given her. If there are children that come into the picture, she might teach her philosophy to the children. As the children go, you try to reinforce your philosophy into a new philosophy that has come into the picture, and there is confusion. Now, whenever you have confusion, you are in a disorganized or disorderly state as a unit, which means order must come back. Confusion comes from chaos. Two different perspectives. Where are we going to? What path are we following? And the children are confused, which is partly why most children are influenced by their teachers. Because in the family unit, there isn't integrity in vision. There isn't consistency in purpose. There isn't one word. And so in choosing a woman, the question is not necessarily whether there is a difference in philosophy. The question is also not whether there is a difference in belief system. The key factor is, do our values align, especially amongst the major issues from a hierarchical position? For example, if your family believe that one of your values would be honesty and integrity and kindness, you can put that in a hierarchical position. What is the most important? A family that loves, a family that gives, a family that forgives. If the woman, on the other hand, believes in an eye for an eye, and whenever there's someone wronged the other person, then it's an eye for an eye. What you then have is that she might have integrity, she might have honesty, but she doesn't take forgiveness as an important cornerstone, and therefore she's looking to reciprocate what she received. That is wrong. So it's the ideological position to the whole concept. I genuinely think, and perhaps this is not the place to address it, most people make a mistake of thinking, I'll find someone that has the same philosophy as me. Most of the time, it's a very boring experience, a very boring union. We are different. We're supposed to bring out uniqueness and form a new world where there is understanding. The key part to all of this is whether you have more in common or you have less in common. Now, the mistake most men make is we think from a sexual perspective, we think with our little head. And so once intimacy has begun, or once we can see the woman is attractive, we put aside our philosophy, our belief system, we put aside our value system, we put aside our ethics, we even ignore her character, and we don't pay attention to the lifestyle she's living. As a matter of fact, when you meet a woman, you don't have to worry too much about her belief system or her philosophy or her value system. You can look at her lifestyle and you can invert, you can work backwards. Her lifestyle will tell you what her character is. Her character will tell you what her ethics are. Her ethics will tell you what her value system is. Her value system on a hierarchical perspective will tell you what her belief system is. And that will tell you her philosophy. So my encouragement to you as young men, and even old men, is don't be too aggressive about getting to the finish line and saying, I do. Take the time and vet the women that come into your life to ensure that you're making the right selection. Now, let me talk about something that I think is important. The reason I have an issue with 50-50 relationships is because I always ask a question. Cui bono? Who benefits? First question. Second question. Who leads and who follows? Who leads and who follows? One has to lead, another has to follow. And when you have a 50-50 partnership, you have confusion because one person is not willing to give up their stake and the other person is not willing to give up their stake. You have confusion. You get to a place of you become static because one person is not taking the responsibility. The belief is the responsibility is shared. And whenever you have, with regards to relationship, an equal partnership, there's always issues that arise. There's something powerful about saying, in terms of a hierarchy, as the man, I am responsible for your provision and protection, for the priestly roles, and to profess my love. So the hierarchy follows me, and you, the mother, and the children. I protect you and the children. Mother, you protect the children. We report upwards in the hierarchical perspective. So if you can answer the question, who leads and who follows? And most importantly, if there is a divergence in your philosophy, is there a good faith approach in attitude? You see, philosophy, attitude, and actions are interconnected. You can have a philosophy. The other question is, what attitude do you bring to the interaction? There are some people who bring a good faith temperament, and therefore you can iron out disagreements in a peaceful way and actually in a good faith way. Now, I'll go back a step and address what I referred to about the teacher of culture and the transmitter of culture. A woman who has a good faith approach and a woman who agrees that the man leads and she follows, even if she has a different philosophy and a different value system to him, as part of the union, she will alter her value system because she's submitting to something higher than herself, in the same manner that he is submitting to something higher than himself. And therefore, in the household, there will be one vision, there will be one mission and purpose, there will be one family creed, and both parties will walk together in the same direction. There wouldn't be this issue about resentment, about one philosophy being taken as superior to the other. It's just a simple process of submitting. In other words, I, as the man, submit to the mission and the vision, or the purpose. The woman submits to the mission and the vision under me, through me. The children submit to the mother and the vision and the mission through the mother and through the father. It's simply a process of agreeing on what is seen as, from a perspective of hierarchy, what is the most important. I will say this as I bring today's session perhaps to the midway point and towards the end. Whenever there is chaos in a relationship, it often stems from a perspective of we have two different value systems. I have seen so many great people that I like, people who've actually had kind, loving relationships, and eventually the relationships fail. In most cases, the relationships fail not because the relationship was doomed to fail. The relationships fail primarily because there was a difference in philosophy. There was a difference in value system. One person believes in such so strongly and the other believes in another so strongly. And in the interim, the infatuation, the lust, the excitement, the likeness, sometimes even the love, carried the relationship for a number of years. And eventually, it becomes clear that there is no honor in the relationship. There is no honor from the woman towards the man, and there is no love from the man towards the woman. Primarily on the basis that both parties have very different belief systems and very different value systems. One person, and I'm going to use perhaps this is not a useful example, but let me use this example nonetheless. If one person thinks that the best way to identify and address social issues is to look at people from the perspective of a group identity first, and the other believes that the best way to address people and deal with societal issue is to look and deal with people based on the individual identity first. You have a divergence. For example, it would mean that whenever something happens, you attribute group identity, group guilt, group bias to individuals, sometimes in a very careless manner. On the other hand, the other person might think, when something happens, I look to the individual as the person who is responsible, as a person who can make a change, as a person who can stand forward and say, I made a mistake, and therefore I don't assign one sin to the rest. It might seem like an easy example, but in society today, we have started putting ourselves in groups, and we attribute either group identity, group sin, group responsibility as primacy, and individual responsibility and identity as secondary. Other people do it in the reverse. That is a powerful disagreement. If it's ideological, if it's simply a slight disagreement in good faith, where both parties have different perspectives, but the woman submits to yours as part of her duty, then we have no issues. The most important question is she submissive to that position? And the reason for this is simply because, remember, you teach the culture of the union and the creed. She transmits the culture and the creed to the children. And if you have confused children as a result of mum or mother having a different value system to father, you have confused children. And I will say this, there should only be one voice in your house as a man. That voice should be yours. It shouldn't be another man's. It should not even be, this is a controversial take, it should not even be the voice of the Lord, whatever you call the Lord. It should be your voice. Another person's voice and will should not override your voice and will, because in your kingdom, you are supposed to be the law. In other words, your word is supposed to be the modus operandi, how things should work. Now, there is a difference between perspectives that people have, and let me say this, think about, I remember an example. Someone said, two men are in a prison. They both look out the window. One of them sees a beautiful sunset, and the other sees the steel bars on the window holding them back from freedom. Same view, two different perspectives. Perspective is how you see the world. I separate perspective from philosophy, and I separate perspective from value system. I have met women who have a rather tough, strong value system based on an ideological position. Part of the reason in the sessions that I did earlier, I made reference to avoiding women who believe in the feminist, the modern feminist ideology and the strong ones, is because it's almost, I wouldn't use the word inevitable, but it's more than likely that there will be issues in the relationship. Primarily, we're bringing patriarchy, attributing to one person the sins of men of the past and using that constantly as a weapon, rather than understanding and judging the person based on who they are. There's a disagreement and you say, well, after all, that's what men do, generalization. So it's important to understand the difference between perspective, philosophy, and value system. It's fine for women to have a different perspective than men. It's also fine for men to have different perspectives than women. But if you're choosing someone for the long term, my recommendation to most men is it's better to get people who have more of an alignment in philosophy to you, which will translate that they have an alignment in belief system to you, which also means they have an alignment in their value system. They have a different ethical perspective, and both of you may have different characters. But the closer you are and the more you have in common than you have differently, the more successful that union can be. You see, beauty will come and go. Attractiveness will come and go. Youth will come and go. What tends to keep people together is something much more than the physical attributes that we both possess as male and female. It has to be something more. It has to be some overarching, either belief system, idea, philosophy, principle, and almost certainly an alignment in value system. There would never be peace in a house where the woman has a different value system to the man. There will always be chaos. And I can tell you this, someone who cares very much about men, it's in your best interest to avoid such relationships. Walk away. Do it early. Do it before you commit. And do it even after you've made a mistake. And perhaps that might be a session I do at some point. We've lied to a lot of young men in saying that once you've made a mistake with regards to a relationship, that it's your duty to stay there and suffer for the children. I won't expand on that in today's session, but I will tell you that there's an alternative way to think about how you can still have peace. And the children can have the closest thing to a two-parent family and still do well, survive and thrive. And the mother can also have peace and survive and thrive. When you meet women who have a different value system to you, walk away. Understand that there is no investment needed in such women, despite how attractive they may be and youthful they may be, and despite how wonderful they might be in other areas. You know, their non-sexual marketplace value might be high, they might be very agreeable, they might be very feminine, they might be great in the traditional values that women of old once had. But if you have a different value system, you will be in a world of pain. It's just a matter of time. Stick to where you can and find women who are more aligned with you philosophically, although you don't have to be completely alike in all areas, but aligned with you also from a belief system. Let me close with this simple example, because I think this is key. And I don't use this as recognize that I could switch the positions. If you're Muslim and you marry a person who is a Jew, a Christian, a Hindu, someone who is atheist, someone who's agnostic, it doesn't matter how great the person is. If you stick to, as a Muslim, the core philosophy of Islam, you will find that there is more energy needed to be expended, either to explain, to teach, to coach, to guide along, to encourage, to motivate, to inspire the person to keep to the word. Now, for Christians, the same thing applies. For Jews, the same thing applies. For Hindus, the same thing applies. For those who are atheists, the same thing applies. If you're atheist or agnostic, the last thing you want is someone actually using the Quran or the Bible or the Torah in your head, in your face, always. You want to be free. Now, Bill Gove, and this is where I close today's session, he said, in a powerful statement, he said, if I want to be me, this is important, and it connects to what we're talking about, value system. He said, if I want to be free, I really have to be me. I've got to be me. Not the me my mother or my father think I should be. Not the me my husband or my wife thinks I should be. Not the me society thinks I should be. If I want to be free, I have to be me. But first, I need to discover who me really is. I think it's a mistake when people go into relationships to discover me, to discover who they are. Because what we tend to do is we start a relationship and we get drawn into love and affection and intimacy, and we take on a defined status, an identity someone else has placed on us. And we're constantly looking to be free. And sometimes it takes years to come to a realization that the cloak, the garment you're wearing, given to you by that relationship, is not you. And what you're looking to do is take it off and be free. The problem is sometimes there's so much invested at that time, either family, either wealth, intimacy, affection, or any other commitment that causes the whole separation and you being free to be difficult. So my recommendation to men, and I would hope women would understand that this advice applies both ways, and therefore likewise women can understand and see in choosing someone for a lifetime or for a relationship or for a union, you have to judge them by their philosophy, you have to judge them by their belief system, you have to judge them by their values and their value system, you have to look at their ethics, their character, and their lifestyle. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.